6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The Voice of Stockton. For more information on The Voice of Stockton, go to thevoiceofstockton.org. This broadcast will start in 60 seconds.
How's it going, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another amazing episode of The Phone Booth here at the Voice of Stockton on KXVS Radio. My name is Ed Heitman, and joining me in the studio today is my good friend and co-host, Brian Rodriguez.
Hello.
Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar with what our show is all about, The Phone Booth is a show that is completely dedicated to the world of pop culture. Anything from movies to TV shows to video games, comic books, you name it, we do our very best to cover it. Now, of course, we have to apologize because we weren't able to be here last week to do our episode of The Phone Booth. The Voice of Stockton was doing the function, and I kind of had preoccupations, so we weren't able to do it then. But we're here this week, and we are happy to share some content with you folks. So, without further ado, let's enter our little weekly wrap-up, where we talk about some of the news pieces that happened within this week. And we actually have some pretty good little bits of news to share with you folks. So let's begin. In the world of pop culture, it's inevitable for somebody to get offended by a TV show or a movie. It just happens. That's how pop culture has always been.
Yeah.
You know. And usually the people who are offended are religious folk. Most commonly, at least from what I've seen, the most common group of people to get mad over pop culture would be Christians. Usually something offends their culture or they don't deem it appropriate for the kids. But this time it's something that's the exact opposite. It would seem as though the Satanic Temple wishes to take legal action against Netflix for appropriating their statue or their monument of their god Baphomet for the original series, The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, which is, of course, one of the more dark, edgy remakes of classic comics. We recently saw this example with Riverdale. But they claim that the show had replicated their statue to the finite detail, and that they're making no symbol of inspiration towards the temple itself. They're just using it for pure reference. Now, this is a confusing topic to talk about because there is the temple is saying that they're mad that Netflix ripped off their statue specifically. But then there are other people of many religions, really, who are saying that the temple doesn't have copyright over the god Baphomet, so anybody can make a statue.
Yeah, it's hard to really say you can have a copyright on a religious symbol, even if it's of a satanic religious symbol. Like, you couldn't really argue that you have copyrighted a crucifix or anything like that from Christianity, or say... Actually, I can't think of a good Muslim...
Well, like I think a good example of people getting mad over stuff that's normally copyrighted would, like people getting mad with the fact that the temple is trying to place a form of copyright on Baphomet would be like an example of somebody trying to place a copyright on Jesus Christ when it comes to pictures and just about anything that he's drawn onto. But in the end, I don't think if this does go to court, it's not going to last very long.
Yeah.
We see this happen a lot with other religions. It might get a bit of attention, maybe a news article or two, but at the end of the day, the court case will just get handled real quick.
Yeah, this really isn't going to amount to much for them, I think, unless there's some sort of really shocking legal upset where they do have a copyright, in which case this will get a lot more interesting.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, anyways, I'll pass this next bit of news over to my good friend Brian. Take it away, man.
Okay, So, we all know I like Arrow, and I enjoyed the Arrowverse on the CW. And that's why I'm so excited for this year's crossover, because it is looking like it's going to be a doozy. Between Arrow and the Flash switching costumes, a new costume for a character, an old character getting his old costume back, I'm not saying who, because potential spoilers and all that. We have got another hint at a longer form storyline coming. It was recently announced that Bob Fraser has been cast as the Psycho Pirate, a supervillain and inmate at Arkham Asylum for the crossover. Now, normally this wouldn't be significant. The Psycho Pirate's sort of a C-lister villain. He can control people's emotions. But he's significant because he was the sidekick and lackey of the Anti-Monitor during the Crisis on Infinite Earths events back in 1985, which is really one of the most significant events in DC history. It destroyed a lot of their old universes, brought a lot of new universes together, it shook up the entire status quo, and it's really one of the best known comic book events. It was one of the first big ones that started the trend of a new event every 3 weeks, it feels like at this point.
That's interesting. I really am excited about the Elseworlds crossover special that's going on, because there's a lot of things that are going to be introduced. I believe we got a sneak peek of Ruby Rose's Batwoman, which is supposed to be revealed in the crossover, I believe.
Yep, we've seen images of her on set and an official image. It looks very good. It's very faithful to the comics.
Definitely. And there's also been rumors floating around that this Elseworlds crossover may or may not even be a backdoor pilot to a potential Superman TV show. So there's a lot of good things to look forward to about this. And I'm glad that they're introducing more villains. And if it does lead to a potential Crisis on Infinite Earth storyline, I would definitely be excited about that, because the CW seems to be doing a really good job when it comes to handling major DC events in their TV shows.
I mean, someone needs to do it, and it's clear it's not going to be the movie division.
Oh yeah. The movies can learn a thing or two from the CW TV shows at the moment, but
Absolutely.
I think it's good. I mean, I'm still looking forward to it. I don't really get to watch the Arrowverse shows as often as I'd like to, but I am looking forward to the crossover specials. So, next little bit of news. It was announced recently that Ewan McGregor, best known for his role as Obi-Wan Kenobi in the Star Wars prequel films, has been cast to play the role of the villain Black Mask in DC's upcoming Birds of Prey movie. Now, I'm definitely excited about that, because, to be honest, there aren't too many roles that can recall Ewan McGregor really being in. I know he's an actor of well-known fame for Star Wars, but the only other film, honestly, that I can recall Ewan McGregor being in was The Men Who Stare at Goats. And that was a really good movie. And, to be honest, I am looking forward to seeing Ewan McGregor get put into more roles, especially a DC role. It would be interesting to see how he pulls off the role of a super villain, since a lot of people see him and immediately think that he would just be playing those wise old men kind of roles,
Yeah, for reference, Black Mask is a crime boss in Gotham City, like the Penguin, except he is completely insane and sadistic. Not quite to Joker levels of insane, but he's just a piece of work. He tortured the fourth Robin to death. He started wars, gang wars, at one point I believe an actual war. He's a dark character, and it'll be interesting to see how Ewan McGregor does with it.
Dark character, one of the biggest mob bosses in Gotham City. Obsession with masks, as given obviously by his name. But it's definitely going to be I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how they're going to interpret the Black Mask into this film, because supposedly it won't be as accurate to the comic books as people are saying, because Cassandra Cain is supposed to be introduced into the movie, who was one of the Batgirls, but she's going to be a young Cassandra Cain.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that. That actually gets me a lot more interested in this movie.
Oh yeah. Earlier they announced some of the characters who were going to be in it, and that was one of the ones that were mentioned. And I am looking forward to it, because I'm just looking forward to some DC films that aren't Justice League or Suicide Squad, to be honest.
Yeah, I think DC is probably going to thrive by not doing a connected universe at this point. They've tried to copy Marvel, it's failed, and now it's looking like a lot of the more anticipated ones, like Aquaman, is technically a part of it. It's the same Aquaman as in Justice League, but apparently it has no real tie-ins to the rest of the universe. It's its own thing, same with Shazam, and everything else seems to be its own thing going off as well. There's the Harley Quinn movie in development, there's the 2 Joker movies in development, only one of which I am excited for.
I honestly think that perhaps DC got inspired by Marvel, because with Marvel there were some people, as impossible as it sounds, there were some people who don't really care much for the Marvel Cinematic Universe with the Avengers and all that stuff. But so then they had spin-off universes. Because of that, we have films like the Deadpool movie, we got the Punisher films, we got Logan, which is one of my favorite superhero films ever. And I'm guessing DC probably saw this and thought, you know what, maybe if we want to fix our reputation with people, we're going to need some extended universes, aside from the one that we have.
Yeah, I think they should take sort of a lesson from the Netflix Marvel shows, where it's technically in the same universe, but not really.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they stopped referencing anything happening in the Marvel Universe past Daredevil Season 2. They referred to the attack in the Avengers as the incident a few times, and at one point referenced the Incredible Hulk from 2008. But that's really it.
Yeah, I kind of feel like after because once the Avengers Initiative was announced, before they even did the Avengers movie, just when they announced the Avengers Initiative, the big tie-in between Captain America, Thor, and Iron Man, it seemed like after that, every single Marvel movie had to make constant references to the huge universe that it is in. There's always, normally there were Easter eggs at first with like the old school classic Spider-Man films and things like that, which were cool. But then after the first Avengers, every single Marvel movie, you had to reference some other Marvel hero. In Spider-Man Homecoming, Iron Man is in there a good chunk of the time, and he has a lot of dialogue too. You know. And Thor Ragnarok, we got the Hulk and stuff like that. And those are examples of good crossovers. But then there's ones where you have to constantly mention the universe. And that was a huge problem with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., in my opinion. They told you that it was tied into this universe, but you didn't get to see the tie-in. You were just told to believe that it's there.
Yeah, they tried doing it for the first few seasons, like... Actually, one of the reasons the first season of the show suffered was because it had to tie in with Captain America the Winter Soldier, where it's, revealed S.H.I.E.L.D. is being controlled by Hydra, which they just sort of had to tread water until that happened. And by the fifth season, with Infinity War happening, they just sort of said, oh yeah, Thanos is out there doing something. We're really not going to pay attention to this at all. That's never really referenced. Remember when we were talking about Ewan McGregor being cast in a DC movie?
Yeah!
We got tangents here.
We somehow slipped from Ewan McGregor being in a DC movie to the problem with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That's pop culture for you. It goes from one topic straight into another. Okay, well, since I'm rambling, I'll just pass this little next bit of news over to my good friend Brian. Take it away, man.
In a bit of unfortunate news, Jesse L. Martin, who plays Joe West on The Flash, has announced he will be taking a medical leave of absence from the show. Apparently, in the break between Season 4 and Season 5, he injured his back pretty severely, and while he appeared in the first few episodes of Season 5, he has announced that the injury has progressed to the point where he needs to take an extended leave from the show. Now, he has said he is not permanently leaving the show, it is a temporary absence, but it will apparently be long enough that it will be addressed on the show.
Man. To be honest, I didn't really get to watch the Flash show all that much, so I don't really know too much about his character, things about that. But it's always unfortunate when a popular actor has to take a break from a certain show, I believe that was actually that was one of the reasons why the Spider-Man films got discontinued, the classic ones, because of the fact that the main actor needed to take a break. Yeah. So it's always a bummer when that kind of stuff happens,
We're just hoping for a speedy recovery.
Yeah, definitely. In next little bit of news, so Battlefield 5, the infamous Battlefield 5.
Yeah, we talked about this one a lot.
A lot. It is within a month of release. Some people are excited. Many are not, just due to all the conflicts that we keep having to constantly deal with regarding EA and this game for some reason. They're trying to take another approach to deal with toxic behavior in their games. Now, while we have certain games like Overwatch that rewards people for good behavior with their endorsement system, and we have Rainbow Six Siege that will immediately punish people for their toxic behavior with their AI interface, DICE, one of the people behind Battlefield, is going to take a very unique approach. They are hiring undercover interns. to investigate live matches of Battlefield 5 and figure out various causes of toxicity, what could be done to prevent it, what could be used as a decent reward to prevent toxic behavior and whatnot. But I find it interesting because while on the surface level it sounds really awesome, the fact that EA is trying to hire secret agents basically to figure out this problem, it also makes you realize that they finally have to do this from a human perspective, because during the beta their censoring AI was just wonkers. It censored out random words like white man, Nazi, and DLC for some reason, unless you said free DLC.
Yeah, those ones I don't believe were quite as random. There were some, like, genuinely random ones like spaghetti. Censored the word spaghetti.
Spaghetti.
Which, I guess, sure. I can see it I can see the rationale behind censoring white man. It's not a good rationale. But then there's things like Nazi, where you're in a game set in World War II. You could very easily just be referring to the other team that will most likely be Nazis if you're, a non-Nazi team. Nazis were kind of important in World War II.
They were.
Sort of central to a lot of the conflict.
Kind of, sort of our enemy during that time, But they have to deal with it now from a human perspective because their AI didn't do too well. And, of course, the intern would have to have, like, a master thesis from a Swedish university, and they'd be specializing in medicine and psychology and whatnot, so at least they have a little bit of knowledge when it comes to how the brain works when it comes to toxicity, so we might get an interesting report, which would be referenced in the future for many other talking points for people. But I just think it's weird. This is the first time I've heard of them saying, hey, we're going to have somebody go in there and investigate what's happening. I've heard of people go into live matches and deal with it with, via bully hunters and stuff like that.
I got that.
Yeah. But this is an interesting approach. What do you think about it, Brian?
I am a lot more cynical about this. I think this is most likely a PR stunt. I think they've realized that there's been a lot of backlash to this game, not even just because of the censoring AI, but because of a lot of other things. So they're trying to do a gimmick with it. They're saying, hey, instead of, putting in a in-depth, either reward system or punishment system, we're going to have an intern go through matches, or probably a bunch of interns, most likely. And that's another thing that gets me. They want people to have a master's degree from a Swedish university, and they want to hire them as interns.
Yeah, they don't even pay them.
Yeah, unpaid interns. Just hire them as employees. If you really want to make people think you're taking this seriously, don't say, hey, we got a bunch of, master's students. We're not paying them. They're in charge of all this.
Yeah.
Just put in an actual...
Make it...
Do something! Do something!
Yes!
You are owned by Activision. This is the same people that own Overwatch. You can probably do something like that system without getting in too much trouble. Just...
Well, their justification behind that is that they want to
get
get these interns to figure out a way that they can use a reward system to deal with toxicity. Because I guess EA doesn't know how to reward people for good behavior. They can reward them with loot boxes, but not with good behavior.
Yeah, it's not Activision, it's EA. I was thinking of Call of Duty. There's a lot of really samey-looking shooters out. My brain is having trouble keeping up with them.
It's fair enough, man. They're both shooters with a fair amount of toxicity behind them. So, it's fine. So, we're going to move on to the next little bit of news. Take it away, Brian.
It has been rumored for a while now that Marvel is working on TV series for Loki and Scarlet Witch, and specifically, hopefully, starring Elizabeth Olsen and Tom Hiddleston, for their characters. Hopefully set within the MCU and for their upcoming streaming service. Well, now we got rumors of another series, an event series based around the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Now, this series is apparently in production right now. They've hired Empire writer Malcolm Spellman to develop it. If it does go to series, it will be a limited series, around 6 to 8 episodes, but it will supposedly have a higher budget than any other Marvel TV project. Any of the stuff they've done on Netflix, Hulu, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., things like that.
I'm confused, honestly. The fact that their biggest project that they're working on in regards to shows. They're highest funded or whatever is it, biggest budget for a Marvel series. It's one that's about the Falcon and Winter Soldier. They're good characters.
Mm-hmm. And they had an interesting dynamic in Civil War, at least. They both have they're sort of rivals, but they're both Steve's best friends. So
Yeah, and I do like their characters. It's just interesting that Marvel would pick those two, especially when lately Marvel's main focus is to focus on the really, really big named superheroes. And Winter Soldier and Falcon usually fall into the background as Captain America's sidekicks now and then, when they're not doing their own independent thing, which makes me understand why they would do a series. But it's still interesting, I don't know. I thought it was weird.
It could be interesting because presumably this will be coming out after the second half of Infinity War or whatever it ends up being titled. And there's been a lot of rumors that Captain America is going to be dying. There's rumors everyone's going to be dying in it. But given a lot of Chris Evans' tone about rapping on the film, it seems like Steve Rogers may not be long for the MCU. And the two main successors in the MCU for the Captain America mantle are Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So it's possible maybe it's sort of building their characters to see which one of them will take over as Captain America. Maybe it's both of them trying to deal with the death of their mentor, their best friend, their commanding officer in a lot of ways.
To be honest, man, I'm still waiting for the Black Widow movie, man.
Apparently, Scarlett Johansson has negotiated a contract for it. She'll be getting paid as much as the male stars of other Marvel movies getting paid, about $15 million.
Well, that's good, because I've been waiting too long. I've been waiting since Civil War for a Black Widow movie, and for some reason, they keep saying, we're gonna do it, but they don't do it.
It's been in the works since, 2010.
I know. It's ridiculous. I'm surprised it took this long. I just want to see Scarlett Johansson beat up some people as a covert secret agent.
When DC does something better than Marvel, and specifically getting, a female-led superhero movie out, you've done something wrong.
Oh yeah, for sure. Anyways, next little bit of news. Castlevania Season 3 has been greenlit.
Woo!
Executive producer Adi Shankar announced the news on Halloween. The series' second season was recently released on Netflix and has garnered rave reviews. Now, I myself haven't had the wonderful opportunity of seeing the Castlevania animated series myself, but I have seen trailers, and from what I've seen from the trailers, the animation looks wonderful.
It is amazing.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on it, man?
I love this show. It's the first season was on the short side, only 4 episodes, but it's animated beautifully. It has great voice acting. It has a great story, and it's an adaptation, at least the first 2 seasons are, of Castlevania 3 Dracula's Curse, but they are not afraid to take liberties with the story. Like, one character they just completely cut because they didn't have room for him. They took a lot of events from the sequel to Castlevania 3 and actually put it in the story to set it up properly, so characters that appear in Castlevania 4, I believe? May not have been 4. Don't just show up without any warning as, we're Dracula's greatest confidants and we're mad you killed him. And, they actually have some build-up in the show, and some really great build-up.
Well, that's good. I definitely gotta give that a watch then, because I've been looking for some more Netflix exclusives, and I've been wanting to check out the animated section, because I know that Netflix has a couple of animated exclusives under their belt. And I know that Castlevania is one of the ones that have been constantly advertised, and I would definitely recommend that for somebody that wants to watch an animated series on Netflix.
Very bloody.
Very
bloody.
Very bloody.
For anyone that wants to watch it. It is, I'd say, Game of Thrones levels of bloody. This could not be shown on network TV.
Would you say it's about, Berserk levels of bloody?
Probably, yeah. There's a lot of really graphic deaths.
Oh, man. Well, that's brutal.
Yeah.
But, yeah. I mean, that's really awesome, the fact that Season 3 got confirmed. Alright. Now, on to the next little bit of news. Speaking of Adi Shankar, he's recently announced that he is working on a new video game adaptation. On his Instagram, he announced he is working on an adaptation of a Japanese game company's iconic series. We aren't sure what this project is, but the most popular rumor is that it is an adaptation of The Legend of Zelda. This will be Shankar's 3rd video game adaptation after Castlevania and an upcoming Assassin's Creed series. A remake of The Legend of Zelda, an adaptation. isn't that what Breath of the Wild was, basically?
Well, yeah, this one will be a TV series, so it won't be a game.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, and it's... I think Zelda could work because they wouldn't have to adapt any specific game because there are so many elements of the games that are, they're repeated. It's, a story being told sort of over and over. There are new elements each time, but the core is the same. So I think he could probably actually do a unique, well, maybe not unique, but an original take on this story without having to be beholden to any specific game in the franchise.
I feel as though, one of the biggest roadblocks that would be in his way of making an adaptation of The Legend of Zelda is dialogue. Because in the games, it focused on a little bit of dialogue because from people that you would encounter. Link never really talked himself, even though it was implied that he would engage in conversations with people.
Yeah, he does talk, you just never see what he says.
Yeah, so it would definitely be interesting. I know that in itself is going to rustle some people's jimmies, because fans just get frustrated at small changes all the time. But this isn't the first time that Legend of Zelda got an adaptation. We have manga comics from the Ocarina of Time.
Yeah, I actually had a few of those as a kid. They were good. And of course, there's the infamous Legend of Zelda animated series back from the 80s.
Oh god, no. CD Legend of Zelda was terrible. That was awful. Just the worst.
And of course, he may not actually be working on Legend of Zelda. That's just rumor at this point. Maybe he's working on Metal Gear because of, Castlevania's a Konami property. Maybe they're happy with how he's handling it and he's working on an animated Metal Gear. Maybe he's working...
You know what? That's what I hope he's working on. I hope he is working on an adaptation of the Metal Gear series because I loved the Metal Gear series, the games that I got to play. I got to play 2, I got to play a little bit of 3. The storyline to it is great, and it is something that would genuinely be perfect to be turned into some kind of animated adaptation.
It's an exciting prospect. We honestly don't know. There's also been rumors that Adi Shankar is working on an adaptation of Diablo for Netflix.
That would be interesting.
Which, of course, isn't, by a Japanese game company, so it's a different project from this, if it's even in existence at all. But there's just so much this could be. It's hard to... I love a Legend of Zelda series. I'd love a Metroid series. I'd love a Metal Gear series. I'd love... really any series Adi Shankar produce. I like him. He's a good producer.
He definitely has a good style to him, so I would definitely be interested in whatever it is he's going to be doing an adaptation of. So I'll pass this next little bit of news over to my friend Brian. Take it away, man.
So BlizzCon, Blizzard's annual convention, was this past week, and with it came a slew of announcements. Some of them good, some of them not so good, but we'll get to that later. Okay. First of all, World of Warcraft Classic, which will be a set of servers running the game as it was when it launched back in 2004.
It's vanilla version, dude.
2004? 2003?
2004, because I know that the Corrupted Blood incident was in 2005, and that was before they had the first actual expansion. It was just updates.
So 2004. And it will be as it was then, which is a good news for a lot of fans, because a lot of fans don't like a lot of the changes that have been made to WoW. Most of it's focused on anything after Wrath of the Lich King, but there are some...
Pandera, for example.
Yeah, Cataclysm, Mist of Pandaria, but there are a lot of fans that just want vanilla WoW. And it will be free to any WoW subscriber. They can just, if they want to go play WoW Classic, they don't have to get another subscription or buy another game or anything like that, which is great.
Oh, yeah.
They could very easily have turned this into a cash grab, but I think they're probably going to regain a lot of the subscribers they've lost over the years because there's been a steady decline. If they just reintroduce the game that people started subscribing to all those years ago.
Oh yeah, because a lot of people will just want to try out World of Warcraft if they heard that they get to play the original version. Yep,
it will be launching summer of 2019. They didn't really get any more specific than that. And
awesome.
With a date that vague, it may get pushed back. But anyway, speaking of Warcraft, Warcraft 3, the RTS game, is getting a remaster, Warcraft 3 Reforged, which will be out sometime in 2019.
Warcraft.
Yeah, it's amazing that they're actually remastering a Warcraft game and not just trying to do something with World of Warcraft. They try to ignore the series that happened before WoW.
They honestly really did try to ignore Warcraft. I remember people telling me, it got to the point where people were telling me, stuff about Warcraft like it's some sort of a legend or a story or something. Because they're trying so hard to stick to just World of Warcraft, and they do not want to do any other Warcrafts, because they have the World of Warcraft, and that's what they want to stick to now, and they've said it over and over. So the fact that they're doing a remaster of any of them is confusing to me.
Yep. In Overwatch news, they've announced their newest character, Ashe, who is she's just amazing. She's a cowboy, she's got a shotgun, she looks awesome. I don't even play Overwatch and I love her.
To me, she kind of seemed like a clone of the cowboy character, Graham or something.
McCree?
McCree, yeah. Yeah, the guy with the revolver and whatnot.
Well, they do actually know each other. They used to run in the same gang, so they are actually, related. But they do have distinct gameplay styles, which...
I noticed they've been doing that a lot. They've been having main characters bump into old friends, and then the old friends become announced as playable characters. I know they did that recently with Diva. One of her old E-League partners got announced as another mech operating character, I believe.
I know what happened with Torbjorn. Was it Torbjorn? No, not Torbjorn. God, who's the guy with the shield?
I would not know.
I don't play this game. Anyway, someone's granddaughter got announced as a new character.
You know what? I think that might have been it. I'm not sure.
Yeah, and I think it's nice because it's a lot of the old guard getting, new versions. Like, one character got their mother introduced as a member of the original Overwatch. It's, it's a nice building of an interconnected universe, even if they refuse to put actual story in the game.
Yeah, I kind of wish that there was a lot more development going on with the characters being announced and whatnot, but at least we have an idea of like a generation kind of setup for the Overwatch characters, which would probably do wonders for like Overwatch comic books and stuff. But as far as games go, the only thing we can really look forward to is there's a new playable character, and we have as much of a chance to play as that character until bugs make them as fair as every other player.
Yeah. Diablo, it will be getting a mobile title called Diablo Immortal, which has been met with an interesting reaction by fans, but we'll get to that. Yeah. And while not a Blizzard title, it was announced that the PC version of Destiny 2 will be free for everyone through November 18th, and as long as you just get it from the store, you keep it forever.
That is impressive. I am glad about that.
Yep, it's available through Blizzard's launcher, Battle.net, which is why it was announced at BlizzCon. But it's, it's the base game. It doesn't have any of the expansions, but the expansions are... Actually, I think the bundle right now is cheaper than the base game was at launch. It's about $40, I think. And, it's a free game. Even if you don't want to play it now, just, go pick it up. Maybe you'll want it in a year, maybe you'll want it in 2 years, maybe you'll never want it, but you'll have it anyway.
Yeah, it's still just there to play.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, that about wraps up our weekly wrap-up, ladies and gentlemen. And now, without further ado, it is time to enter our next segment, which is called Trailer Talk. In this segment, Brian and I will talk about some of the latest trailers to drop within the week. Though I have to confess, there weren't that many interesting movie trailers, unfortunately. A lot of them were very dramatic or rom-com-y and whatnot, which is actually ironic given one of the trailers that we have.
Yeah.
But we do have 2 movie trailers, and we'd like to talk about a video game trailer at the end of that. So, we're going to start off with the first trailer to the film Spies in Disguise. Its release date is September 13th, 2019, and is starring Will Smith, Tom Holland, and others. Synopsis is about Lance and Walter. One is a super cool and charming spy, and the other invents the super cool gadgets Lance uses. When an event happens, they must learn to rely on each other like never before in order to save the world. And this is directed by Nick Bruno and Troy Quarry. Now, I thought this movie was funny. Now, the actual premise is that a secret agent accidentally gets turned into a pigeon. And that's the plot.
Yep.
That is the plot. A master 007 style agent gets turned into a pigeon, and so far that seems to be the movie.
Yeah, and I love the way this trailer is made, and that the first half of it is just Will Smith's character being this awesome super spy, and you can sort of see this sort of being an animated James Bond for kids.
Yeah.
And then it just immediately cuts to him as a pigeon, and it took me a minute to figure out what had happened. It's
like, you think you know the plot at first, and then like halfway into the trailer, it's a total curveball on you.
Ed was sitting a ways away from me when I was watching it, and he saw my reaction, and he just said he just turned into the pigeon, didn't he?
Yep. I was just sitting there on my laptop, and I just saw Brian just go, "What? What?" I'm like, he just turned into a pigeon. I know it. That's what just happened. But, the movie looks fun. It looks like a nice little animated kids film. I believe it's done by Blue Sky. Yeah, Blue Sky, which is good. Blue Sky makes some pretty decent films. Rio, Robots, things like that. Good
films. They made
films.
the Peanuts animated movie, which I thought was pretty good.
I believe they tackled a couple of Dr. Seuss films in the past. I believe they did the Lorax.
Yeah, and I think they're doing a Grinch adaptation that...
Yes. No, that's Illumination.
Oh, that's Illumination.
Yes,
okay.
that's Illumination. Our next trailer is the first trailer to the rom-com, Isn't It Romantic? Its release date is February 14th, 2019, and it is starring Rebel Wilson, Liam Hemsworth, and others. And synopsis that a young woman, disenchanted with love, mysteriously finds herself trapped inside a romantic comedy, and it's directed by Todd Strauss-Schulson. And I thought this movie, the trailer, looks really awesome because not only is it a case of somebody bumping their head and waking up in another world, it also actively makes fun of every aspect of a rom-com.
Mm-hmm.
That was like a couple of running gags in the trailer. Was that, like, for example, whenever she tried to cuss, there was a car beeping to censor her out.
She has a stereotypical gay friend, which is very stereotypically gay, and she actively calls out that this guy probably sets the gay rights back 100 years, which, yeah, it's, you know, one of those offensive stereotypes that you see all the time as the friend to the non-threatening male friend to the female lead.
Mm-hmm. And there's also another aspect that they made fun of, how, like, Rebel Wilson was, like, starting to chat with Liam Hemsworth's character, and just, like, instantly transitioned into the bedroom after they slept together. And, like, she kept trying to come out of it, like, just kept transitioning constantly and constantly.
Yeah.
Literally making fun of every aspect of a rom-com, and I love it.
And they make fun of the meet cute where Liam Hemsworth sees her and asks her, "Don't you have this feeling that we were meant to be together?" And she goes, "No, because that's not how anything works."
Yeah, and she also points that out, too. It's like she's walking around and suddenly everybody is attracted to her for some reason. Everybody thinks she's interesting. Suddenly she's popping up on, like, ads on buildings and stuff like that.
She goes to her apartment. It's suddenly gotten a lot bigger and fancier. Like, she's... Like every rom-com where, you know, someone working an entry-level job can somehow afford a penthouse in New York.
She even ends up calling the cops because she thinks that somebody stole her stuff and just replaced it with even better stuff.
It's something that I'm not going to go see in theaters, but I will definitely watch it if it pops up on Netflix or Hulu or something like that.
Definitely. I'm definitely waiting until it pops up on, like, FXX or something, because they have some decent films occasionally. In fact, they constantly play a movie that has Rebel Wilson in it, actually, Pitch Perfect 2. They tend to play that very often, but I can see it showing up on that channel, and I will look forward to that movie when it finally drops. Mm-hmm. Now, we talked about the two movie trailers that we brought up for our show, but we also want to talk about a third, which is the trailer to the official story mode of Smash Bros. Ultimate. Now, in case you're not familiar with Smash Bros., it is a series that is a free-for-all fighting game using Nintendo's most popular characters and now starting to slowly branch out into other companies as well.
Yep.
And normally the story mode wasn't really all that important. There was like some vague plot, but overall your main goal was to just play as many brawls as you can to unlock more fighters. But this one got pretty dark.
Yeah, the trailer starts out with every character in the roster, which is like over 50 characters at this point. It's ridiculous.
Every Smash Bros. Character ever, plus new ones.
Yeah, they are going up against an army of Master Hands. And Master Hand is typically the final boss, a giant white glove of any game. He is ridiculously overpowered. He has screen-wiping moves. He's the hardest challenge in the game. And they are fighting an army of them. There's just like this armada of them coming from the sky. Mm-hmm. And eventually they all dissolve and merge into this one being that shoots out tendrils of light that kill everyone.
Everyone. Even Snake, who was hiding under a cardboard box to avoid the rays of light.
But yeah, the rays of light hit the characters and they just disintegrate in them. The only survivor is Kirby somehow, and it's just... You look at this and go, Nintendo okayed this? This is how their game starts? I'm assuming it's going to be, oh, they weren't killed, they were transported somewhere. But the implication from this trailer is that they were all killed.
Well, it's not really too surprising. I mean, think about it. When they announced the Castlevania characters, Luigi got killed and turned into a ghost. And for the longest time, that was how people thought Luigi was. They thought that he was officially a ghost now.
Yeah, and like the creator of the game, Masahiro Sakurai, had to come out and say, Luigi's fine. Don't worry. He's going to be okay.
Yeah, that's so funny when somebody's come out and be like, "Don't worry, guys, Luigi's not dead. He's not dead."
And it looks like the trailer is going to be what like the opening cinematic is, and the main bulk of the game is going to be you going around an open world and defeating evil copies of Nintendo characters and sort of purifying them to be on your side.
Yeah.
So you can unlock them. There's a skill tree. There's a system where you can use spirits of characters you can't play as, but are from franchises. Like there's the Rathalos, there's the Shantae from the Shantae series. There's a bunch of Sonic characters I remember seeing, and they give you power-ups. It looks like a really in-depth story mode. It's not just a bunch of fights strung together, kind of like what the Subspace Emissary was in Brawl. This is like an actual thing that put thought into.
Oh yeah, you know that they had to put extra thought into it because so far all the advertisements that have been going on for Smash Bros. Ultimate have been constantly repeating that this is the ultimate Smash Bros. Game.
Masahiro Sakurai wants to be done. He's wanted to be done since Melee. Let him make something else.
Honestly, dude, just come on, let him chill. But this is supposed to be the ultimate Smash Brothers game. They have included everybody, and they're adding even more fighters to try and appease the fans who are constantly demanding more characters. Now, when you're working on an ultimate project like this, you can't just brush over the story mode. With other Smash Bros. Games, they had a story mode, but they never focused on it because fans didn't care about the story mode. They cared about unlocking characters and fighting as them. This is a whole nother story. People are building this up to be like the ultimate. Even though we know that as soon as this game's out, people are already going to demand another Smash game with even more characters and an even better story. But that's a whole nother topic that I don't want to ramble off into. Bottom line is that this story mode looks insanely impressive. I'm definitely impressed by this story mode, and I am definitely looking forward to getting a chance to play it on somebody's Nintendo Switch at some point in time.
Yeah, typically I don't really like the Smash Brothers games. I like Melee, mainly because that was one of the first video games I played. But this story mode actually has me interested in buying the game.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, anyways, ladies and gentlemen, that about does it for trailer talk. We only had 3 trailers this week, but next week hopefully there'll be some more interesting things that we could discuss. But it is time for us to enter our discussion piece. Now, before we actually tackle into the full-on discussion, Brian, I was wondering if you could explain to the audience about the disappointment that came out with the new Diablo.
Okay, so at BlizzCon earlier, we mentioned that Diablo was getting a mobile title in Diablo Immortal. This was announced at BlizzCon to extremely negative feedback, and that's putting it lightly.
Very lightly.
Now, if this was on the main stage at BlizzCon, and they'd been teasing a new Diablo title for a while, to the point where fans were saying, oh my gosh, they're going to announce Diablo 4, and Blizzard actually came out and said, we've seen fan speculation, that is not the game we will be putting out. They didn't directly address that it was Diablo 4, which is what they were talking about, but that there are many games in the Diablo franchise in development, sort of hinting that Diablo 4 was, in development.
Yeah.
They were very coy about it because they didn't want to...
they didn't want to give away anything.
Yeah, they didn't want to accidentally announce something too early, so they were being very vague about it. But because of this vagueness, fans just sort of took it as, oh, well, they don't really mean that, and it's going to be Diablo 4, or it's going to be the Diablo series that's been rumored we talked about during the Adi Shankar piece.
That is so weird. Like, how does somebody hear, hey guys, we know you're talking about this game, but it's not going to be done. How is somebody's reaction to that going to be, oh, they're not really being serious, it actually is what we think it's going to be? Desire
and denial.
I guess.
So when Diablo Immortal was announced, it's essentially a mobile version of Diablo 3. It's it's got a bit of a graphical downgrade to be on phones. It's a bit more simplified. It's going to have more multiplayer MMO aspects. There was a resounding negative feedback, not just from the audience in the hall where it was announced, where it got booed and many sarcastic comments, but online as well. The trailer is currently sitting at a drastically low threshold downvotes on YouTube. I could have described that better, but I can't think of a way to. And it's just being panned on social media. I haven't seen a single positive reaction to it besides people trying to defend the developers from the people attacking them.
And you know what? I find that brings up a particular topic that really bothers me in the video game community, and it's the fact that people overhype everything.
They do.
Lots of examples have been coming out lately. I know a huge example was with Fallout 76. When it was getting close to the announcement, I know everybody was extremely hyped over what new Fallout game was going to be released. At first, people thought that it was going to be a sequel to New Vegas, one of my favorite Fallout games, in my personal opinion. There was also speculations that they were going to work on an extended version of Fallout 4, and there were even rumors that they were already working on a Fallout 5. And then when Fallout 76 got dropped, everybody was disappointed because they all expected the next installment of the franchise, but instead they get a massive prequel, which is also an online MMO with no NPCs or anything like that, which is a respectable thing to get upset about when you're excited for a game and you find out that it's only like 25% of the game you like to play. Mm-hmm. But then there's the example that you gave a while back, a few episodes, about the whole Destiny 2 ramen voucher fiasco.
Oh, yeah, that was a while ago. That was back in August.
Now, for those who didn't get to watch the episode, would you mind giving a little recap on the ramen voucher incident?
Okay, so before the release of the latest appearance in Forsaken in early September, we knew that the character KXVS was going to die. They'd been hyping that up a lot, and you know what? He actually did die. It wasn't as impactful as they were hyping it up to be, but anyway.
They tried to give him a heroic moment, though, to be honest.
They did. And
it just wasn't as impactful.
Yeah, and before he died, there was a small quest, it was barely even a quest, where you went to a hub area and got a ramen coupon from him. A running joke with him was his love of ramen since the trailers for Destiny 2 when it was first announced. Mm-hmm. And it was the expired ramen coupon, and it had a nice bit of lore as sort of a final goodbye from KXVS. But see, with Destiny, a lot of these things turn out to be keys to larger quests, leading to guns, leading to armor, leading to new lore, and fans tried to tear it apart, trying to figure out what this led to. Mm-hmm. When in reality, it led to nothing. It was a goodbye. It was a simple goodbye, and when this came out, fans lost it. Because they imagined that due to the way Destiny has been in the past, which, you know, I'll admit that may have led to some hype, but despite no promises from Bungie, they imagined that they had sort of been promised by this thing's mere existence a new quest, a new gun, a new whatever, when that's not what it was. It was simply a piece of lore saying goodbye.
And that's what brings us to the main discussion piece. It's one thing to be hyped about a video game. Everybody gets hyped about a particular video game, especially when the franchise that you love is coming out with the next installment. I freaked out when I heard about Fallout 76. I freaked out when I heard about Mass Effect Andromeda, even though that didn't go out too well.
No.
I was hyped when I heard about Injustice 2, even though that game was okay at best. But to get so hyped that you yourself are already like demanding that things are going to be in it, and especially at the point where the developers tell you, hey, this is not going to be in the game. I know you guys are hyped about it, but it's not going to be in the game, or this is not going to be the game. I find it insane how some people will hear that and still go, no, they're not being truthful. They're going to do what I speculated. I already know it. It's 100% accurate. It's going to happen. And then when it doesn't happen, they're like somehow blown away that what they wanted isn't what actually happened.
Yeah.
You know?
It's part of a sort of cultural shift in video games I've noticed lately, in that because of constant updates to games after they come out, games tend to sort of be trained towards their fans and what their fans want, even if they weren't exactly that way at launch. Mm-hmm. So when the fans don't get something they want, they sort of throw a tantrum.
Yeah, it's been happening a lot. I kind of remember with a while back with Halo Reach. Mm-hmm. A lot of people got upset because that was advertised and you found out that you can't get to play as Master Chief, and that threw everyone into an outrage about that too.
Even though I don't think it was ever advertised you could play as Master Chief.
Yeah, but that was another case of people instantly assuming that you'd get the opportunity to. Mm-hmm. But, I don't know. At the end of the day, video games are just video games, man. Mm-hmm. I personally like to believe in the whole multiverse thing, so even if one thing doesn't happen, you just gotta stay patient because there's a very high chance that it'll still happen anyways, you know?
Yeah, and some of the reaction to Diablo Immortal has been, there have been calls to fire the director over the fact that he's directing a game they don't like. And that is just unacceptable.
Oh, yeah.
There was a fan at the event who actually lied to the moderators to get his question in, where he asked if this was an out-of-season April Fool's joke. Oh, yeah, you're so funny. You're directly insulting the developers of a game during their what is supposed to be sort of their golden moment, where they finally reveal what they've been working on for most likely years at this point. But yeah, you got your funny moment. Good for you.
Yeah, it's a bummer, man, especially when you start talking down to the developers and everything because you didn't get what you want. At least the game is there, you know. There are a lot of games that people didn't really care much for, but they still enjoyed the fact that it was out there. You know, people got mad about Fallout 76. Bethesda could have very well just said, you know what, we don't want to do Fallout games anymore, even though that's one of their big cash cows at the moment, aside from the Elder Scrolls series.
And Bethesda has said they do plan on making, a core Fallout title. And I'll admit, in the Diablo example, the announcement could have been handled better given the crowd they were speaking to, which are hardcore Diablo fans that paid hundreds of dollars to get in there. They probably could have handled an announcement of a mobile game a bit better, and the developers could have handled the backlash at the panel a bit better.
Yeah, that's true, but what can you do?
Yeah, in the end, it's a game. I mean, I know a lot of people love video games, but again, it is just a game. And if you don't like something, that is not an excuse for someone to get fired over it. There are plenty of legitimate excuses for people to get fired, but them making a game you were not personally hyped for and are mad about its existence, that's not one. That's a child throwing a tantrum.
For sure. Well, anyways, ladies and gentlemen, that about does it for today's episode of The Phone Booth here at the Voice of Stockton on KXVS Radio. My name is Ed Heitman, and joining me in the studio today is my good friend and co-host, Brian Rodriguez.
Yeah.
Be sure to tune in, folks, every Saturday from 1 to 2, where we talk about the latest things regarding movies, video games, comic books, TV shows, all things pop culture. You name it, we do our very best to cover it. Now, please have yourselves a wonderful, wonderful afternoon.